eyes open. Ah, grab your kalimbas, open a portal. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the very first episode of the Maelstrom. This is Meliae coming to you live from Fae Portal 1316. And that's what this was. Ready? 1316. Sitting here at my computer at the liminal space of my willow, river birch, and stone, but here in my human vessel as well, at my computer, making this Fae Cast. Anyway, what is Fae Portal 1316? It is one of the many interdimensional doors that exist along the ley lines running through our beautiful earth. Ley lines, they are humming, they are awakening. To those of you who are unfamiliar, ley lines are energetic lines, right, that exist all across Earth. Earth crust. They exist all across Earth. And there are doorways along these ley lines, and I'm at one of them. Just opened it up here. And Earth, like the ley lines, she is a soul, Gaia. She is waking up too. Everything's awakening. The trees, the grass. Let's just say it, the earth, sea, and sky, and all that exists within that realm, within and without, through the veil into the Fae realm as well. Lots of beautiful entities waking up and wishing to communicate with humanity, right? We are entering into an age of magic again. Periodically, the Earth goes through this beautiful proton belt around Alcyone, the central star that we share with the Pleiades. And we are getting a massive volt of that energy now as we traverse the golden ribbon. So open up. Let's open up and receive that beautiful energy today. Now that I've introduced that to you. So what is this podcast? What is this Fae Cast? I should probably start with telling you who I am, or rather what I am. So my name is Meliae, and it's so professional. I'm Meliae. What the fuck? I'm an ash spirit, and I'm an ash spirit from the Fae realm. I'm here to not be shy, to step out of my shyness, out of my comfort zone, and share my observations. My observations of humanity. And I myself am a human as well. I'm a Fae in a human vessel. And I was initiated in the art of observation from a very early age in this human vessel. Shaped, molded by the quiet, sometimes strange currents beneath our world, and just among us. I was shaped by trees, wind, just the elements, really. Trying to watch and listen and to witness humanity with very clear, unblinking, different-sized eyes. One of my eyes is bigger than the other. So, I'm not here as a human. I'm here as a Fae observer. I'm translating from the in-between and sharing what I see for your growth, your clarity, and your ascension. And if you hear like creaking kind of things, those are just my fucking headphones. So today's topic is discernment. What a fun topic, especially with someone like myself coming at you talking about fucking proton belts and shit. So I also curse a lot. Apologies for those who are offended, but we need to talk about discernment. So use your discernment here as well. It is the first skill that every traveler between the worlds, between dimensions, must learn. It is judging well. Discernment, it's an art of seeing what's real, what's imaginary, what's unspoken, and composting it within yourself and determining if it fits for you. Is it good for you, right? You got to be your own compass keep yourself steady when the maelstrom, right? All the energies around you are getting loud, chaotic, or perhaps seductive. So we got to stay sovereign. That's the word that comes to mind, is sovereign, self-ruling. Right? We got to know where our attention is being pulled, where our energies are being extracted. I apologize, I stumble on my words because I get excited. I'm like, anyway, we're in a world full of noise, a lot of information. Oh, there goes my computer showing me pictures of my daughter. So cute. It's like boom, boom. Okay, so this is a lecture today. And the title of this lecture is Discernment in the Age of Spiritual Influencers, Ethics, Influence, and the Responsibility of the Guide, inspired by my meanderings on social media, doom scrolling reels, and seeing these like MDs, myself included, I'm an MD, but seeing these doctors talking about metaphysics and stuff and speaking with a lot of conviction. And I was like, hold up. My gut was like, this feels wrong. I was like, why does this feel wrong? So I was using my discernment. I was like, something feels fishy here, right? So I decided to mull on this and like think about it. I like the word composting. I'm like a worm, just like moving slowly through the soil and turning bullshit into richness again. So that's what I want to do here. I want to educate. I'm an educator. I like talking. I like observing and just learning too. So why does this conversation matter? Well, we live in a time where spiritual content seems to be spreading very, very quickly. So quickly that like our wisdom or our critical thinking can't catch up sometimes. So I use the word wisdom, but maybe that is what we need to rely on, right? And I'll get to that here in a little bit. Because, as I alluded to earlier, influencers speak with a lot of conviction, a lot of certainty in their tone, and that can mimic authority. Now combine that with like credentials, like leveraging credentials, like an MD or similar, that shit gets really blurry. Okay, we're in a world, I think, where people are very hungry for meaning, belonging, and even mystery, right? Like sitting in the unknown and being okay with it. So that makes them very open, but also it makes them, or I should say us, vulnerable to narratives that are presented without context, without grounding. That can be destabilizing rather than awakening. So what's the key takeaway here? Information is powerful, and in the wrong hands, it can become volatile or dangerous, right? Like the One Ring, it's like, yes, this is powerful shit, right? Information is very powerful, so be responsible. That's kind of the gist of this talk. So let's go back to basics. Definitions, discernment. It's the ability to judge well. And there is a paradox that comes with discernment, right? We often think of discernment as this like purely rational kind of critical thinking. It happens in the brain, but I think it actually begins in the body, right? With intuition. And we often think sometimes, oh, maybe my intuition is enough. But without evidence, that can become projection or it can become wishful thinking. So discernment is the marriage of the two. It's our gut and our brain, it's our nervous system speaking to each other as one, right? You're integrating. You're not being a skeptic. You're not just like questioning things for the sake of questioning. You're integrating. So your intuition is like the alarm system, and the evidence you gather and kind of mull through in your brain, that's the investigation part. So we got intuition and we got evidence. So intuition, what is that? That is the body's felt sense, right? The feelings that you get. And humans, I've observed this in myself and others, like humans feel things before they think it. but then they like suppress it. Like, oh, no, like no, that's not what it is, right? So it's the body's immediate felt sense of safety. It's like an emotional truth. You just know. Like, I know that that's what that is. That's intuition. And I'm not going to talk about like, is it a trauma response or whatever. Like, I'm just going to keep this very simple for now. We can make that another topic another time, right? Like where people get confused, like in their body, like, is it a trauma response? Is it intuition? I think they're the same. But anyway, then there's evidence. That's the mind's ability to observe the patterns, right? Oh, I've seen that before. And then you kind of check the receipts, you check the reliability, you evaluate, is it consistent across time, right? That's you taking notes, right? That's you doing your field work, right? Like, you could do this in dating too. Like, trust your gut, use discernment in dating, trust your gut, but also take notes, right? Be a scientist as well. You got to merge the two. All right. So let's see how this dynamic plays out in like modern society right now. We have that one camp, the open, potentially vulnerable, exploring camp of people. They're curious. They have this kind of sense of humility. They want to learn. They're open. And then you have this other camp, the authority, right? The influencer that speaks with certainty, maybe with branding, and even worse, like leveraging credentials. That's the one that I have a big fucking problem with. So, going on that line of thinking, like, you can hold a medical degree. I'm not going to speak about who influenced me to fucking make this podcast, but you can have an MD and talk about metaphysics, but then intentionally yuck or unintentionally blur the line between evidence and belief. Okay, so like, use your discernment here too, right? Like, I don't need to prove myself here. I don't need to prove that I'm an MD in the human realm and I'm a fairy ash spirit in the Fae realm. It's just something I know inside myself, right? That's just something I know for me. And if you resonate with that, great. If you don't, you're like, wow, that lady is a wacko. Like, yeah, bye. Like, that's okay, But I am not here pretending to merge those two worlds, right? My toes are in both, and that is okay. But I'm not going to pretend that like my MD is giving me license to talk about this other world, right? Or having that credential as a way of like boosting the credibility of what I'm talking about. My MD doesn't matter here. I think what matters most is my right brain that's activated, that got inspired to do this, right? The right side of my brain finally has some space to be creative, and to open and potentially like channel this being, Meliae. So anyway, key takeaway here, credentials, they amplify influence and therefore amplify responsibility. You gotta be responsible with the information you share. Put disclaimers, man. Like, some people aren't ready. Like, some people need to be initiated into this information slowly. So that brings me to my next topic. Why are people so easily influenced? Right? I'm not going to say what my specialty is, but you might be able to guess what specialty in medicine I was trained in. So humans are wired for story. They're wired for connection and certainty too. So what does the brain do to fit that kind of information seeking? Well, it does with shortcuts. And those are called, in academic terms, cognitive bias. That's the brain shortcut. So our brain is wired to go like path of least resistance. It wants to conserve energy. So it relies on these patterns rather than like slow analytical thinking. Okay. Now it's just so interesting because I'm thinking about like interoception and proprioception and like the gut feelings that we get to our insula, that part of the brain, like that's automatic, right? But we're gonna talk about cognitive bias first. I am going through too many tangents. So what types of cognitive bias exist? Well, it's confirmation bias, pattern seeking, authority, emotional reasoning bias. Confirmation bias we'll start with first. So people want to confirm or seek information that matches what they already believe, right? Or seek out information that they hope is true. So they're already coming in, right, to their, doom scrolling reels, and they believe something. And now they're starting to get information that validates, right, seemingly validates their belief. Now that belief could be totally wrong, right? But it's right to them. But now that is going to get reinforced through the information that they're consuming. So that's confirmation bias. Then there's pattern seeking bias. This is when the mind starts to connect dots, even when the pattern is imagined, right? Again, this is similar to confirmation bias, right? Like you have this pattern, now you're being fed this information that's like confirming it for you. So you got to be careful, again, with what you're reading and consuming. And it makes me think of like the Alice in Chains song, like, my eyes. Lane Staley, like, just feed my fucking eyes. Yes, like you are feeding your eyes this stuff. Anyway, back, less tangents. There's also authority bias. So this bias is where the brain likes to trust confident speakers, right? Or even credentialed individuals without scrutiny. It's like, oh, they have a degree, or they're speaking so confidently, they must be telling the truth. Fucking no. Like, use your discernment. Like, do you really trust this person? Because people lie. They do. They straight up fucking lie because they have ulterior motives, right? To make money or fame, whatever the fuck. Like selfish, yucky things. Emotional reasoning is potentially another type of bias. So this leads people to treat their feelings as true, right? So that's just like relying on the intuition. Like, I feel this, so it must be true. They're not doing the field work, right? They're not taking notes and like checking reliability, credibility. They're not merging the critical thinking with the intuition. Okay. So that's one of the reasons why people are easily influenced. Another reason, this is a huge one, parasocial relationships. I don't even like that it's called relationships because it's not. It's one-sided. It's an illusion. It's an illusion of intimacy. So it's from the person receiving the information and digesting that information. It's parasocial trust. So they're getting this, the person consuming the information is repeatedly exposing themselves to a creator, and that gives them this sense of like familiarity and safety. Like, ooh, I know that person. They feel like they know the influencer, even though obviously the relationship is one-sided. But the reason this happens is, again, we're wired for connection. Our brain, our nervous system, it responds to faces, tone, storytelling, as if this was like a real social bond. But it is not. So just remember, you don't know these people, okay? So it lowers, this is for you, the consumer, right? Not the person giving the information. Like, this is for you to travel through this world of information to be safe, right? Because that parasocial trust, that can lower your guard. And it can increase your susceptibility to suggestion, right? Like, oh, trust me. Like, yes. And then you trust them, and then some bullshit happens. Like, you definitely see this with like non-traditional, like alternative medicines and stuff. And not shitting on that like at all. Like, fuck, I use like alternative stuff, but I use my discretion and I research and I trust my fucking discernment. Just don't trust what someone says at face value. Do your research. All right. So Bottom line with parasocial trust, right? Vulnerable individuals, people who don't have this skill yet or developing this skill, they can project onto the influencer, the person trying to sell them something or like give them information. They can project the roles of like mentor or healer or even like savior onto the influencer. And that is really, really fucking dangerous. Next one. What's another reason why people can be emotionally influenced so easily? Trauma, my specialty, both personally and professionally. So trauma is a fragmenting energy. I'm going to just say it like that because it is. Like, think of a hammer like hitting a rock and exploding it. That's what trauma does. It disrupts the person's internal narrative about their life. And when pieces of the self are fragmented in this way, information that's presented as like coherent or offering like meaning or purpose, like spiritual information, can be really enticing. So there can be those who are vulnerable, those with unresolved trauma, seeking external structure to make sense of the internal chaos and fragmentation that they're experiencing. So if a mythic or a metaphysical explanation is presented that feels safe, that's going to be enticing versus like confronting very painful psychological truths. And I'm not dumping on spiritual frameworks helping those with trauma, but there is something known as like spiritual bypassing, right? You gotta do both. You gotta do the intuitive healing portion in your body, right? Trauma, I really truly believe the healing starts in the body and also integrates the cognitive, right? The rational mind and the narrative mind as well. So like bottom line here too, trauma survivors, they might gravitate toward very like certain type of information, like information that's presented with certainty, because the uncertainty that they've dealt with in the past felt dangerous. So there's this desire possibly for healing that overrides that skeptical part of the brain, and that can make people a bit more open to unverified claims. What's another one? People are influenced because of allure. The allure of hidden knowledge, right? Like, ooh, I know something you don't know. So secret esoteric information can create a sense of like otherness, exclusivity. It can even empower people or make them feel special. And humans can be drawn to the idea that there's a deeper truth beneath the surface of ordinary life, when in fact, sometimes things are just ordinary, right? Like the rock in my backyard, or the tree in my backyard, one of the trees definitely has a soul and a spirit, I believe, according to my discernment. And then there's other trees and rocks, maybe not trees, but more so rocks, because I speak to rocks too. Some rocks don't have a soul in them. They're just rocks. So sometimes there isn't meaning, deeper meanings in kind of ordinary life. Again, allure of hidden knowledge. Hidden knowledge can sometimes promise control in a world that feels unpredictable, right? It gives this like framework that, yes, this is how things are. So you kind of box yourself into that. It activates the imagination. It can feel very emotionally validating, spiritually validating. It really, bottom line, feeds the ego, right? And also this like existential longing of being in the know or belonging. What else? Let's see. Psychological comforts of certainty. What does certainty do? Well, there have been studies, right? Like certainty calms the amygdala, and ambiguity can activate its responses. The amygdala is that little almond-shaped part of your brain, one on each side, gets activated when under stress. So an absolute statement can feel very soothing because it removes the burden of critical thinking, right? So people can transition, or people in transition, I should say, or in crisis, they crave something clear, even if those answers are simplistic. So be very careful when you're presented with information that seems very certain, right, or simple, because that can mimic safety. And that might be safety that someone didn't have in like childhood or adolescence or sometime in their life. So they want that. So an influencer who speaks in absolutes, be wary, right? Be very wary of that. So just rounding out that section of this lecture, right? Influence, it works because humans are wired for story, connection, and certainty. Next topic. I wish I had like a class so I could be like, any questions? But here I am talking into a microphone. So next section is the ethical problem. All right, this is when the spiritual influencer might be wearing a lab coat, right? This is the dangerous part, and this is the part that really inspired me to do this, right? To don my Fae heritage and come as an observer and a messenger. So there's definitely a danger in mixing clinical authority with metaphysical speculation, right? I have seen this with influencers who have medical degrees, MDs, and they are so sure, they have so much conviction, right? That when you go back to that last little bit of the talk, vulnerable people, their critical thinking can get overridden or overridden. So what comes to mind too is monetization, right? It complicates everything. It's just yucky. It's a yucky feeling, right? Like leveraging your credentials to speak about a topic that has nothing to do with your degree, but since you have the degree, it makes you sound more convincing or credible. And then, trying to make money off of it. That just seems snake oily and just gross. So just be careful, right? Because your rational mind, your emotional core can potentially be susceptible to this, right? Because someone coming at you with like certainty and conviction and like credential authority, that spiritual content can bypass potentially that barrier that we all have inside of us, right? Our emotional, intuitive core is a barrier. Our rational mind is a barrier. So keep those barriers up, right? So that you can make a decision from wisdom, from a place of wisdom. So I'm not saying that metaphysics is false, right? I'm just saying that the system of delivery really, really matters. Okay. So what is my position? This is the next part of the talk. There has to be a model of ethical spirituality, right? So here, I've shared a little bit, like little tidbits, right? Like my own intuitive experiences. I'm not going to go into much depth about that today because I want this to be kind of like a shorter introductory Fae Cast. But personally, through my own discernment and spiritual work, I have very deeply rooted beliefs in metaphysical or fantastical beings. For example, the Fae, dragons. I believe in energy. I believe in ley lines, earth consciousness, right? Alcyone, the proton belt. I believe in these things because I feel them. And the evidence that I have gathered through my work, my own personal work, and through my own research confirms that for myself, right? So I'm not here telling you what to think, just letting you know that me personally, this is what I believe in. I do believe that humans are more than their material biology. And I'm very aware that not everyone is ready for this content. So, my purpose here, really my commitment here, is to share only with those who are seeking this information and not broadcasting it indiscriminately, right? People will find me. The people who resonate with this, they will find me. Because really, spiritual knowledge, it requires consent, readiness, and context. So what is that? That's initiation, right? It really does require initiation. So how do we practice it? This is the practical part of the lecture. We finally got here. So when you're encountering something in your doom scrolling reels, check the tone of the information being presented. Is the tone humble, or does it feel absolute? I'm just leaving a little space, right, for you to think about it. Check the motive. Is this person teaching, or are they selling? Check the grounding. Is it framed as metaphor, or is it framed as literal truth? Check the impact. Is this empowering me, or is it destabilizing me? Right? And that's when you check your body. Do I feel good? Do I feel expanded? Or do I feel pressured? And always check the credentials. Is that person's credentials being used appropriately? Okay. So key takeaway here is discernment is not skepticism, right? It's not just like questioning for the sake of questioning. It is self-protection. You're protecting yourself, right, with your shield. So here, I'm going to round this out now with the role of the steward, right? So we talked about what you can do, and now what about the influencer, right? This is my philosophy, right? A steward protects the integrity of information. They honor the readiness of the listener. They do not broadcast indiscriminately. A steward does not use credentials to inflate mysticism. And a steward holds both science and spirit with respect. Okay, the world does not need more indiscriminate influencers. It needs guardians of wisdom. So we're gonna end here, right, with just curiosity, right? I said a lot of stuff, and I'm still curious, still learning, right? And I want to remind everyone that mystery is not the enemy of science, right? It's not. This lecture is really a plea for ethical communication, right? Let's be good, right? Let's be good and speak from a place of love, right? I really envision a world where exploration of spiritual matters is grounded, it's safe, and it's transformative for people in the best way, right? Where discernment can help with ascension. It can help with growth, right? You hear like ascension, right? But like really the growth of the soul or of the person, that it helps them grow without destabilizing them, right? That it liberates them. So that is the end of this talk. Let's dip our toes out of the portal now. Thank you for being with me here at Fae Portal 1316. Let's close it out.